You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 531, Timeless.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau, with a special message from Norman Lau from 15 years in the future.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the version of me from the future to let me know that there was a mistake in this week's episode, but he corrected it.
So, I mean, that's it? I mean, we just do the show like normal?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I mean, anything else? Anything useful maybe about the future?
Well, no, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Well, wait, hold on. There was one other thing. So that version of me said that he was visited by a version of himself from another 15 years in the future.
Whoa, that is insane. What did he say?
I mean, not that much. I mean, he's just reminding us that there was still new Star Trek being made.
Oh, okay, great. So I guess we're still doing this show 30 years from now?
Well, kind of yes, kind of no. I mean, I'm retired, and my voice and comments are generated by, well, super advanced AI.
Cool. That is awesome. What about me?
Well, you're still at the office looking up trivia every week.
Great.
Anyway, this week, Timeless is the one where Harry Kim saves the ship only after destroying it twice.
I'll be back in a moment with trivia, apparently now and forever, and right after Norman tells all of you how to reach us.
Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek. Drop us a line at missionlog@roddenberry.com and join us on X and Facebook at Mission Log Pod. While you're at it, leave us a review and a rating at Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. And please remember your comments could be used on Mission Log or engage on the Roddenberry YouTube channel. And now here is, 160, 70, 80, 90, maybe 200 years of John Champion, aged very prematurely with this week's trivia.
I feel it. I feel it catching up with me. All right, this week, Timeless. All right, we have a story by Rick Berman, Brandon Braga, and Joe Manoski. And here we have the combined brain trust doing two very interesting and important things with this episode. First of all, this commemorates the 100th episode of Voyager, which is quite an achievement for any TV show. A little bit more on that in a moment. And also, this episode elevates Harry Kim to the central figure, which, let's face it, has not happened in a while. In fact, wait, I've got a question about that. Hey, Garrett,
Yeah.
Get in here. Hey, question for you. Is this one of those instances? Did you bend Brannon's ear and say, I want to do more? Or were you just surprised because you got a script that had more Harry Kim in it, finally?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that my summer home is John's broom closet. So I'm just off to the side there. Whenever he needs me and he yells, I just come out of the closet really quickly and I just talk.
You're welcome.
He doesn't charge me rent at all. That's the best thing about John.
I'm good like that.
So he's so generous. Yeah, it was a surprise because Brannon had called me about a month before, I'd say, that we were actually, before we started principal photography on that particular episode. And Brandon was like, hey, you got to get ready. I'm like, why? The 100th episode, it's all your character. We were going to make it a two-parter, but we decided to make it a single episode. And this is going to be the signature Voyager episode. And this will be the 100th episode and in our estimation, the best episode of Voyager. And it's all Harry Kim. So he said, get your sleep, make sure you know your lines and be ready to go. And I was stoked. Trust me. I mean, when you're a part of a 9-person ensemble Star Trek show, which is the most compared to TNG, DS9. We had more than the original series, DS9 and TNG and Enterprise. We had the most. Yeah. So when you're part of that, you get 1.2 episodes per season that revolve around your character. If that,
Yeah.
And that's it, right? So when the 100th episode opportunity came around, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a chance for me to shine and get a chance to act and say some lines that aren't expositional bridge lines like I'm used to. So this was really my saving grace, because up until that point, for the first few years, I really felt like I was underutilized, and I was really depressed about not being utilized. And this episode definitely utilized me. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and I was really excited to be able to do this.
Now, of course, in this episode, we take two of our principal characters, Chakotay and Harry Kim, and they go through a little bit of transformation. We catch up with them 15 years later, and that means it's time for Michael Westmore to show off a bit of old age makeup. And wait, in fact, I've got another question about that. Hey, Garrett!
Yes, John?
Hey, thank you for coming back in here. I appreciate it. Garrett, question about the makeup. So Harry Kim, ages 15 years. Did you have any input in that at all? I mean, there's a little bit of the gray in the hair, just a little haggard looking, but still a young guy.
Yeah, well, okay. Initially, Harry had quit Starfleet, so he had just kind of taken off and did his own thing. So they initially tried this wig on me that the hair was long, like past my shoulders, like down to my waist practically.
Yeah.
And I had that on, and they showed the producers, and they said, he hasn't been living in a cave for the last 12 years. I mean, what is this? So they changed that hair to something a little bit more, with a little bit of gray in it. But they did do old age makeup. They put some jowls on me, they did all that stuff. Basically, they did the gray in the hair. They did a little bit of, some work on the face a little bit, but not much, just to make it look like I'm 15 years older, not 35 or 45 years. Like at the episode with Michael McKean in it, that one I was supposed to be 95 years old, so it was heavy prosthetics, but not for this one. This one was moderate prosthetics and the gray hair in that wig.
Now, the teleplay credit goes to Brannon Braga and Joe Menosky. And here's the thing about, we've talked about this before, Norman, whether there's a right way or a wrong way to write a TV episode. Is it the concept first? Is it the character first? Is it the point of view first? And in this, it was really just an image, just the idea of Voyager buried in ice. Start with the worst case scenario and write the story from there. And that is exactly what they did. Now, it was directed by LeVar Burton. Of course, we all know that LeVar got his directing start on TNG, and he very quickly continued the streak by jumping over to DS9 to direct 10 episodes there, and then on to Voyager for a total of 8 episodes. Now, we do have a name check here of the USS Challenger, and of course, that was named to honor the Space Shuttle Challenger, which, of course, STS Mission 51L, January of 1986. We lost that ship, and this was a fitting way to pay tribute. Now, I mentioned that this episode, Timeless, was the 100th episode of Voyager, and there is a plot point in the episode where the crew are there on set having a party and breaking the bottle of champagne. Well, off screen, the crew were having a party as well because it was time to celebrate. And everybody, cast, crew, writers, producers, joined in the fun.
Now, John,
yes.
the significance of the 100th episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a big deal, but isn't it also kind of the significance of the syndication?
Yeah, of course, this was much more important back then than it is now, where everything is streaming. But back then, 100 episodes was kind of, really not based on any science, but it was kind of a magic, arbitrary number that they had reached. Said, if we can get to that 100th episode, then it's enough to put in rotation. You could do, say, that same show airing 5 days a week for nearly half a year, or you've got a couple of years worth of shows if you're running them one a week in syndication. So it was a milestone anyway. We like whole numbers with zeros at the end. So this is as good a time to celebrate as any. Now let's meet our guest stars. We have a special guest appearance by the episode's director, LeVar Burton, and that was something of a special selling point for the production. If they could get LeVar to direct the 100th, could they get him to jump back into uniform for a quick cameo? And he liked the part enough to say yes. Now, 2 years prior to this episode was the last time we saw the character on screen in the movie Star Trek First Contact. And we have Christine Harnos as Tessa. Christine might be best known for her long recurring role on ER over the course of several years, but it's likely that one of the first places you saw her, as did I, was in the 1993 Richard Linklater classic Dazed and Confused. She turns up in a handful of film and TV guest roles, with most of those credits stopping around 2018. And while this is her only Trek credit, Christine does have 2 upcoming projects slated on which she will be a producer.
Is everyone ready to try the slipstream drive again? This time we're going to do it without Ray Wise, and with new party lighting in the engine room.
Prologue. On a frozen, barren planet, 2 figures beam in and immediately start a search for something, guided by a tricorder signal. Moments later, they stop over their target and call to someone else further away. We're here. Here is the hull of Voyager, frozen and lifeless, stuck under meters of ice. Act 1. Beaming aboard the frozen starship are Chakotay and Harry Kim. But a long time has passed, and a disaster has occurred. Systems are offline, and the decks are strewn with the corpses of their former crewmates. They quickly find what they're after, though, the Doctor's EMH program, and the body of 7 of 9. Chakotay has someone named Tessa beam 7 up to a waiting ship, but the Doctor is disoriented when he is reactivated and demands to know what happened. Chakotay simply tells him that they are here to change history. Act 2. Let's return to an earlier time, the present in Voyager's journey. Captain Janeway oversees the christening of the brand new quantum slipstream drive that promises to shave decades off the journey home. There's still a lot to do before tomorrow's inaugural flight, but right now is a moment for celebration. Janeway invites Chakotay to dinner, 7 has a little too much champagne, Harry is ready to party, but then Tom harshes the mood. There's a phase variance in the slipstream threshold. That's bad. Well, it has the potential to be. Harry suggests that they go to the holodeck and run a simulation, and sure enough, it doesn't work. Well, it does for a little while, and then the phase variance knocks virtual Voyager out of the slipstream. Not just once, but all 23 times they run the simulation. The rest of the crew are disappointed, to say the least. But Harry has an idea. If they send a shuttle just ahead, they could send the phase variance back to Voyager for course correction. Janeway says she'll consider it and asks Harry to prepare a flight plan. Over dinner, Janeway reveals to Chakotay that she is going ahead with Harry's plan. It is a huge risk, but Voyager's crew have waited long enough. She wants Chakotay to take the Delta Flyer with Harry in the morning and follow the plan Harry submitted on the pad that he's been reading. Some years later, that same pad sits frozen in time in the same spot on Janeway's table. Act 3. So, 15 years later, that's where we catch up with Chakotay and Harry again on the Delta Flyer as they try to explain what happened to the newly reactivated Doctor. The experiment failed. Voyager made it just outside of the Alpha Quadrant, but Harry transmitted the wrong course corrections. The ship fell out of slipstream and crashed on the ice planet, killing everyone aboard. The Delta Flyer made it home, and ever since, Harry's been trying to devise a way against Starfleet's wishes to fix history. How? By using one of Seven's implants to send a message through a stolen Borg temporal transmitter before the accident occurred. That's where they need the Doctor's help to extract Seven's transceiver. It's not just the temporal transmitter that was stolen. Chakotay and Harry also stole the Delta Flyer, and they're being helped through their new life of crime by a woman called Tessa Omond. She's read all about Voyager, and she and Chakotay have a special, close relationship now. So with Starfleet on their tails, Chakotay, Harry, and Tessa are up against the clock to finish their mission. On Voyager's icy bridge, Chakotay and Tessa download data from the command console, and Chakotay confides in her that he's having second thoughts. If they succeed, they will never meet. Tessa says she knows his heart has always been on Voyager, and she'll help him get there. Back on the Delta Flyer, Harry is recording a message to someone when he is interrupted by the Doctor. Then it's time for a course in recent history. He and Chakotay were welcomed home as heroes, but the survivor guilt set in. Harry did everything he could to track Voyager's location, even after Starfleet had given up. He even says that he wishes he had been on Voyager and perished with his friends, than live with the regrets that have plagued him ever since. As they discuss it, an alarm comes in that a Starfleet vessel is on an intercept course. Chakotay and Tessa need to return to the Delta Flyer, and Harry asks the Doctor if he's in on their plan. The EMH replies that he'd rather help his friends than face oblivion. Act 4. In the present day, Voyager prepares for its fateful journey, with Chakotay and Harry in the Delta Flyer running ahead. But in the future, the other Chakotay and Harry are pursued by a different ship, a Galaxy-class vessel. It's the USS Challenger, and its captain, Geordi LaForge, tries to strike a deal with Chakotay. Hand over the stolen tech now, and the charges of conspiracy will be dropped. Chakotay declines, and LaForge tells him that it's his duty now to try to stop him. Warning shots are fired, and the Delta Flyer carries on just as, in the present, Voyager enters the slipstream. The tensions, 15 years apart, are on the rise. In 1 year, Harry Kim struggles and fails to get the phase corrections to send Voyager home. In a future timeline, Harry Kim accesses Seven's cranial implant and sends a signal with revised phase corrections 4 minutes before the accident that destroyed Voyager occurred. Success. The message comes through with the corrections, but it's not working. The slipstream collapses and throws Voyager out of control again. The Delta Flyer maintains course, but the accident that destroyed Voyager happens all over again, forcing a crash landing on a frozen world. Act 5. Oops. Future Harry realizes the information he sent was wrong. Again. And to make matters worse, the USS Challenger has got the Delta Flyer and a tractor beam. Chakotay and Tessa are able to buy Harry some additional time with a plasma surge to break free, but their time is about to run out, again, when the Flyer's EPS conduits start to overload. Harry is racked with guilt of failing to prevent Voyager's destruction, twice now. But as time runs down, the Doctor encourages him to try again. Maybe if he can't fix the problem, he can at least prevent Voyager from staying in the slipstream. A warp core breach is imminent, and Harry's one last shot at resending the signal is thwarted again when the Borg transmitter loses power. But at the last second, he uses the Doctor's mobile emitter to provide a boost. With the seconds ticking down, he sends the new calculations just as the Delta Flyer explodes. In the present, Seven receives a new set of instructions, and Janeway orders that she input them. When she does, the slipstream collapses, and Voyager, along with the Delta Flyer, return to their original states. The quantum drive may have been unstable, but the short trip shortened Voyager's journey by 10 years. Harry still doesn't know what happened, but Janeway tells him that Seven received his new instructions, but Harry says he didn't send them. So who did? Well, Harry Kim did. And if that doesn't make sense to him, apparently a Starfleet security code came along with the message that Seven picked up. It was Harry's own code, from several years in the future. Encoded was a message from future Harry to Harry, the same message he was recording on the Delta Flyer when the Doctor interrupted him. It was his confession of regret, but the fact that if it went through this time means he got it right. The end.
Timeless as always, John. Your diction, your attention to detail, your Well, maybe he did 15 years worth of practice. So I'm
Wow.
not sure.
You know what? It's close. It is
Yeah.
close.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I mentioned it in the trivia that this is one of those kind of writer exercises where you start with an image and you just kind of work the story around from that. And what a great dramatic way to open a show,
Yeah.
almost purely visually. And you just get just a taste, just enough information to make you go, wow, and then wait for the opening credits.
There is an interesting timestamp that I noticed. At timestamp 1 minute, 16 seconds.
Okay.
Did you notice? And I think it was Chakotay.
Yeah.
He slipped a little bit on the slight downward slope and caught his balance. But I like that it was kept in. I don't
Yeah.
think that, they didn't need to reshoot it because it was very
Right.
realistic,
Right. Yeah. I kind of wondered about that. Like, if that was acted, it was acted seamlessly. I think it was the real deal where he slipped and then they just kept it in, of course. Yeah. I love the redress of the sets with all the ice and damage. Like, that is a hard thing to do. And then you have to undo it for the next episode where Voyager can't look like it's covered in ice.
Sometimes, like, it looks a little artificial, but I think
sure.
that they really did nail it. Not just like the ice effect, but the time,
Yeah.
where they were buried. Sometimes I get a little weirded out when I see, oh, that's how you're going to react, or this is the actor's choice. But really, like, how is anyone going to react to seeing kind of like their friends,
Yeah.
after all this time, and obviously the tragedy of it.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there for sure. And now, as soon as the plot kind of got moving along, I just kept thinking, like, sure, this will be fine because Star Trek likes to go back in time or forward in time sometimes and just change history a lot. So,
Yeah.
sure, we won't have any problems with this at all.
Time and timeless again.
Yes, yes.
How many times, speaking of which, will the EMH be activated completely out of his time?
I thought about that. Yeah. I mean, this is not the EMH program that has experienced living witness, but this is a thing that can happen to the Doctor because it's just a copy of a program, either in a mobile emitter or, you could have him in a computer somewhere. So you just reactivate him. 15 years could go by, 150, 900, 10,000 years could go by. Just turn them on again. Let's see what's happening. Let's mess with them a bit.
Well, I guess we'll get to her backstory, but
Yeah.
who's Tessa?
Oh, you think we'll get a backstory there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, too soon.
Yeah.
Is that kind of that joke is timeless, by the way?
Yes. Yeah. I really like seeing an old Navy tradition, like, christening with a bottle of champagne. That was cool. And I like the way all that was shot with kind of the slow-mo, and that was fun. Also, a mention of the Cochrane Medal of Honor. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Not cool Talaxian fur fly. I do not want one near me at all, ever in my life.
What is that? And what like kind of infestation is in that fur fly? Because it looked awful. I mean, the prop is okay, but it looked awful.
Yeah, exactly.
Real,
exactly. We are one. Tipsy Seven is great. Just played it perfectly.
Is that like her new, like her name, Tipsy? Tipsy Seven?
Tipsy. Hey, Tipsy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Like Tippy Hedren or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I like that. If you need a nickname, I mean, that would be an easier nickname to pick than, say, the Doctor looking for a name. Of course, Tom knows what an Edsel is because he is our link to the 20th century.
Of course.
Now, I had to ask myself, did they not run holodeck simulations up to this point? Like, Tom discovers what's wrong. Oh, we should jump into the holodeck and run a simulation. I hope that they just do that anyway.
Well, yeah, that was a little strange, in terms of the logic here. So you're going to do 23 simulations. Also, every time you do a simulation, do they always use the same lines?
Yeah.
It's not like it would be like, hey, line, you always doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And then there's also the simulation that we will discuss that we don't see, which maybe could have been, I don't know, helpful.
I think there are too many simulations that are not discussed that we don't see. Now, Janeway's grandmother made vegetable biryani. I had to ask myself, was she Indian? Do we know anything in Janeway's history? But it's replicated. So it's
Right.
not like Janeway made it. And if she got her grandmother's recipe and her grandmother was great at making vegetable biryani, seems like the replicator would just replicate that.
That's what I was thinking. Like, it's not
Right.
like you're gonna challenge yourself with a home cooked meal,
Right.
right? Replicated,
Yeah.
of course. Well, yeah, you're right. Because if it's replicated and it's terrible, that means you replicated a terrible recipe.
You replicated a terrible recipe, of course. Yeah.
I'll tell you what wasn't terrible though. That dinner date,
Yeah.
when she kind of gently pats Chakotay on the head.
Right.
I like that.
There got maybe some
I
unresolved
like
stuff there that
Heyo.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, wait a minute. I feel like this will be a discussion later, but they're not going to test the shuttle maneuver in the holodeck.
Right.
That's what we were talking about before.
Right.
Because they come up with this idea, here's the flight plan.
Mhm.
We're going to do this in the morning.
Right.
The holodeck's right down the hall, guys. We could just, all right,
I'm just saying.
we'll come back. All right. Very convenient that the Delta Flyer has a morgue drawer. I didn't realize that was part of it. Can you imagine Tom designing this thing? He's got everybody like Tuvok and everybody down on the holodeck, and they're like, put fins on it and make it split level, and let's make sure we have a cabinet for weapons. Why don't we put a morgue drawer in there?
Well, it's just being thorough,
I guess
right?
so.
We're going to have, Captain Proton, controls. You're right. We're going to have weapons. We're going to have all the nav panels and a morgue drawer because you have to have it.
Now,
have to.
he could have done what they used to do on ships, where you would have a refrigeration unit, and that's where you'd keep the ice cream. And then if somebody died, you'd put them in there until you got to shore, if it was somebody who was not going to be buried at sea. And then that way you knew if they were pushing the ice cream that night at dinner, you know what happened. So maybe Tom sold it like that. He was like, and I built in an ice cream cooler.
Well,
yeah.
There'll always be like that one. I guess it's kind of like, who gets the extra ice cream?
Yeah.
Right?
See,
that would be Tom.
Saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought that the aging on Chakotay and Harry was very good. Although I really, really do have to say that Beltran's hair was a little bit more salt and pepper.
Yeah.
In earlier seasons, and then they kind of dyed it. Let's just be honest, right?
Yeah.
He looks really good with like super salt and pepper.
Yeah.
I think that Chakotay should have been named Silver Fox as his Native American name.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Silver Fox would have been amazing.
That would have been cool.
Harry's bluntness is interesting, but the whole like they're having sex line, it's just it's what's the word? It's blunt. It's like or it's kind of crass.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I don't know how the writers would have just, I don't know, wrote something different.
Yeah, I had to ask myself, is it a choice that they made because, okay, this Harry 15 years later is just so worn down, no F's to give anymore.
True.
And it's just like, I'm just going to say whatever's on my mind. I also had to ask myself, just from a production point of view, we're talking about the days when Star Trek dared not curse, and not that pointing this out as a curse at all, but it tiptoes into a line of like, how are we describing our characters and what are we telegraphing to the audience about our characters? And now he just says it like straight up about, here's the relationship that Chakotay and Tessa have. Mm-hmm. I wonder if there was discussion around that moment, because it felt a little out of step for Star Trek, but then you have you kind of have the get out of jail free card. Well, this is all in the future. It doesn't really happen anymore. So, yeah.
But I mean, sleeping together is kind of in the parlance of like the 1990s, maybe even 1980s, right? It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
Sleeping together. But if
yeah.
they had said that, and that would have felt like a dated line. So yeah, I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah,
Interesting.
Word choices are interesting.
Yeah.
Very convenient new bit of news that the Borg can communicate into the past.
Yep.
I mean, this just seems like the ultimate Deus Ex Machina now, if we are to pursue that ever in the future. Because if the Borg can talk into the past, why aren't they talking into the past? 100, 500 years ago, whatever. Yeah.
That technology is timeless, really.
Oh God.
Oh, I'm going to abuse.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm here for it.
Speaking of abuse,
yeah,
that is Seven's skull
it
fragment.
Sure is.
Right?
That was weird and creepy. And it's not just like I thought they would just get out a piece, like we would just see a chip of some sort. Nope. Eyeball, everything just right there. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be just kind of like her ocular implant. I mean, we've talked about this before, and it's what it's Jerry's prosthetic, but all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, it's like Yorick. I knew him well. Like, right? Seven of Yorick.
Yeah, Yorick. Seven of Yorick. I knew her, Horatio.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure that we'll come back to this as well, but Tessa is just signing up to have her history erased. So I really, I don't know, that seems like a much bigger existential question here. Yeah. She is not part of Voyager's crew, and she's like, yeah, I'm along for it. Sure, why not? I can do that all over again. When Harry and Chakotay are doing the little checklist in the Delta Flyer in the present day, not in the future, and Chakotay says lunch, Harry says salami sandwiches. It kind of, like, it's a total throwaway thing, just them doing the back and forth, the pre-flight check, but it kind of reminds me of like the contraband corned beef sandwich taken up in Gemini 3. That was a big deal. Yeah,
I thought that was really cool, and it's just kind of like it takes tension out a little bit, and
it does.
Eases,
There's a couple of pilots like bantering. Yeah.
So I loved the editing between, like, say, Voyager in the slipstream drive and that present, and then like how it cut like seamlessly into, say, the Challenger and Geordi piloting. I thought that was super good.
Incredible. So well done. I will definitely come back to that as well. And now finally we get the long cut, the crash of Voyager on the ice planet. Very impressive. A little bit of practical stuff in there, but pretty much all CG. And wow, just gorgeous. Like I said before that I don't like the way Voyager looks when it lands on a planet. I like the way Voyager looks when it crashes on an ice planet. It's just very dramatic, very cool.
I guess it begs the question. So remember that time when they didn't simulate the Delta Flare telemetry?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, because that will never get old. This is timey-wimey stuff, so please forgive me. When Seven gets the transmission, doesn't that change the future by 4 minutes?
It does.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. So what if that was the cause that caused them to crash on the planet instead of maybe surviving somewhere in space?
Yeah. That could have been it. That could have been it. A lot can happen in 4 minutes with 150 crew on a ship that's out of control. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're thinking about it, they're going through the quantum slipstream.
Yeah.
Right. And they're accelerating at a rate that's almost kind of like incalculable.
Mm-hmm.
So when you artificially change 4 minutes of that trajectory, you could be changing months in the trajectory?
Yeah. Absolutely, like you could. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was just one of those things. And I'm sure Pax Federatica will give me like chapter and verse on what's going on.
I look forward to that. Yeah.
In like the final scene, like with Harry and with Jane. I mean, there's a lot of stuff was going on, and you're trying to parse out the message and Harry and the future and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I love that smile that Captain Janeway gives Harry. It's just kind of like, just find a peace with all of this. because what's her saying? Weird's part of the business.
Oh, that's Deanna's line.
Is
With
it?
Starfleet, weird is part of the job, right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
that it's just part and parcel of how many time travel, how many this, how many that, and you know it, it just is.
Yeah.
And I like the reassurance of it just is. And we're fine, we're alive, we fight on another day.
I love the moment, just like you do. I wish we had more of those moments, because think about how wonderful she was back in Emanations when Harry died, and they got to have that moment together. They get to have this acknowledgement of this thing that they couldn't understand or explain. And here we are again with it. And it is lovely. It's so reassuring and friendly and genuine and human. It is also like you have to have the character that this just happened to be in wonder and be confused, a little upset by it, as Harry is. Garrett is playing all of those levels, right?
Right.
But it's also kind of acknowledging that the audience is now trying to piece together this puzzle. And this is the get out of jail free card of temporal paradoxes, which is what Janeway says. Just don't even try to make sense of it.
How can this episode be timeless? There's all kinds of time going on in here. This episode is literally full of time. So much time.
We will get right back to Timeless after a word from this week's sponsors. Hey everybody, within the sound of my voice, we have more exciting news for you from our friends over at Master Replicas.
That's right, Master Replicas signed a deal to take over the Eaglemoss stock and became the exclusive distributor of the official Star Trek Starships collection. But here's the catch. That deal ends on June 15th. So if you have been dreaming of adding some of these iconic ships to your very own fleet museum, now's the time to act.
That's right. June 15th, it's coming up, so make sure you take a look at Master Replicas right away. Now, they have always been the go-to place for Star Trek ships, but things are about to change, and they're running some incredible promotions right now that you should take advantage of. You can get 3 ships for the price of 2, or even 5 ships for the price of 3. It is a collector's and my very own dream.
Each week, they are featuring different themes. If you are listening to this before Sunday, you can grab deals on ships from Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Enterprise, which I personally can recommend the NX-01 refit, which I dearly love, and the modern era of Star Trek on Paramount Plus, including Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and more. And guess what? A new theme starts every Sunday, so there is always something new to look forward to.
You know, how convenient that we're in the middle of talking about Voyager, and the Voyager ships just went on special at Master Replicas. I have had my eye on Jupiter Station for so long. That is a very cool-looking model, so go over there and look it up. And here's the best part. As a special treat exclusively for Mission Log listeners, use the code MissionLog at checkout on masterreplicas.com and get an extra 10% off your purchase. That's right. You can do the 3 for 2 or 5 for 3, and just for our listeners, take an extra 10% off.
And this is not the end of Star Trek for Master Replicas. They've signed new contracts and are negotiating more. We've heard some whispers about exciting new plans in the works, and while we can't share details just yet, in fact, this is top-level Section 31 stuff we shouldn't even be discussing, but we feel like there is definitely some cool stuff coming, and now I am probably going to get disappeared by Section 31 before next week's show.
All right. So don't wait. Head over to masterreplicas.com. Use the code MissionLog and complete your collection before the deal ends on June 15th. The clock is ticking.
And keep an eye out because Master Replicas is working on more fantastic products for other beloved franchises like Stargate, Foundation, Blade Runner, Dune, and Doctor Who. They're dedicated to bringing the best to true fans.
Master Replicas have always delivered top-quality replicas, and now's your chance to grab these Star Trek ships before they are gone forever. Visit masterreplicas.com today. And don't forget to use the code MissionLog for that exclusive 10% discount.
And remember, two things. The clock is ticking. That's the important thing. The other thing is you can't go wrong with that NX-01 refit, really. Head over to masterreplicas.com now and use the code MissionLog to get that extra 10% off. And happy collecting.
Norman, it's another one of those episodes where I feel like we've teased some of the points already that we're going to make.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly where to start with those, but I'll pick one and then well, go ahead.
I have a question. Well,
you get a burning question. Yeah.
Well, we're getting to this really nice point where a lot of the episodes are maybe they're figuring something out when it comes to a lot of what you're seeing is on screen, except for one big thing, which we're going to get to soon enough.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is the exposition is tighter.
Yeah.
So and obviously the moments are a little bit earned, or a lot more earned, I should say. So it's not any real big stretch of the imagination that we don't really have to go too deep into something because you're seeing a lot in the episode itself. Is that fair?
It's totally fair. And here's what I want you to keep in mind, because it might flavor even somewhere that we go in our conversation. And I left this out of trivia because, now is the right time. At one point, it had been discussed that you could do this episode as a two-parter. And I know that, certainly Garrett, being front and center here, would have loved for it to be a two-parter. A lot meatier, a lot more to do here. Brannon felt very strongly, we need to get out everything that this story is about in one episode. We can get it all out in one. And if we do two, then what are you going to have? Well, I think you're going to have backstory. I think you're going to have all the stuff about Delta Flyer actually getting to Earth. What happens on Earth? Who do they meet? How do they spend that time?
Right.
Now, does it feel fair to compress then 10 to 15 years on Earth? And are we really just getting to know them over that time? And do we see Harry just keep slipping down into the state of depression because he's lived with it that long, and the sheen of being freshly at home and having these new relationships, that kind of fades away?
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for that. Because I think what you're getting at here, backstory, and my first note is Tessa,
Big.
And that is a big note for this episode. I even wonder, is there a way to tell this story without Tessa? Now, not because I think there is anything wrong at all with the performance here or with the idea here that there's a relationship, but you're talking about earned moments. Do we earn that moment where Tessa says to Chakotay, your heart's always been on Voyager, I'll be fine, maybe we'll meet again? I don't know.
No, I agree. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
The big question is, and I apologize if I'm jumping.
No. Let's go right ahead.
The big question is, why is Tessa resigned to sacrificing her life? We've only had a handful of details. Early on, I'm a Voyager groupie. Okay. And apparently, according to Harry, she's just in it for sex.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you have this really nice moment between Chakotay and Tessa saying, even if it doesn't work out, we still have each other. If it does work out, then we would never know each other. And it's all very wonderfully glib.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's all on the surface and there's no real sacrifice. And it just, I think that the character earned more, but without a two-parter, you don't really know where to put that.
Yeah.
So I think that either you do the two-parter or you spend more time with Chakotay and Perry trying to get more character depth out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with Tessa, well, you use the word. She's a Voyager groupie, which is a really interesting choice. You know, there are little clues that we are given throughout this that she was studying about, she was reading about Voyager, maybe even well before Harry and Chakotay get back to Earth. I pick up like, well, maybe the idea is that as soon as it disappeared, this is somebody who's just interested in that disappearance. And then a message gets through to Starfleet. Okay, well, here's this tantalizing clue. You could easily picture a lot of people on Earth wanting to know, like, wait a minute, they're still out there. Wait, this raises the stakes and it raises our interest again. So there's all that interesting stuff that you could layer onto that. But let me ask you this. If somebody came up to you and said, by the way, you have the opportunity now to reset the last 15 years of your life. I mean, would you? I don't think you would do it. I don't think anybody in their right mind would do it unless you are making a choice about a specific thing that you decided in the past and could change that, because that's Harry's story here. That's not Tessa's story.
Or necessarily Chakotay's story.
Right.
Because he seems pretty happy.
Yeah, it is interesting that Chakotay is going along with this. I can understand talking the doctor into it, because for the doctor, it was yesterday.
Right.
But talking Chakotay into this seems a little wild, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it adds up. I don't know that the Chakotay and Tessa story really add up here. Maybe if Chakotay had nothing left to lose.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's like,
Exactly.
okay, I'll go do this stupid thing with you. You know, I'll steal a ship with you. At least he's got that.
This is heartbreaking.
Okay.
Give Chakotay the chance to do right by Tessa. What if she was sick?
Oh.
Right? Instead of what happened to her, I'm going to erase the entire timeline, period, and reset, because it's better that she didn't suffer that at all.
Yeah. Could be.
Right?
But here's the thing. We're messing with somebody's past and their past future. Maybe Tessa is somebody who is still interested in Voyager, but they may never meet. These other things in her life may never happen, for better or for worse. Geordi makes the perfect point. He's like, yeah, you think you're saving 150 people, but what about all these other people? What about all this history that has occurred in 15 years? Yeah, some of those things may happen. Geordi LaForge still exists. But if you're rewinding the clock 15 years, you're also rewinding that clock prior to the Enterprise D's first mission.
Well, it kind of like gets ad infinitum, you know. Yeah. But it's the whole ad infinitum of like, how are you going to be able to parse this out? Because like what Janeway said, like the whole thing with time travel, it's just a headache, right?
It is. Yeah.
And the temporal prime directive is problematic at best, gumbified at worst.
Yeah.
So let's, for argument's sake, believe that time travel is real in the world building of the Federation, and that the Federation has the temporal prime directive in place so that the abuse of time travel technology would be punished, right? So let's just take all of the equations and lump sum this. If all of the ships and all of the crews in the history of Starfleet, how many have taken it upon themselves to do and alter history like what Harry was trying to do and restore his timeline? I mean, LaForge he said this, it is not optimal, but you know, this is the time stream as he sees it. Now, what would he do to protect his future and his timeline and his Starfleet and his family in that new timeline that Harry created?
Yeah.
And okay, so like just, you know, add on to that, you have every faction that alters time, the Borg, the Krenim, etc.
Yeah.
So how do we even know that, you know, this is the correct timeline and the proper timeline? Okay, even case in point, if Kirk traveled back in time to save the whales, then why couldn't he just go back to save Spock?
Yes.
Or stop Khan? Or stop Voyager? Or save Edith Keeler? Because this is the point.
Yeah.
You have to believe, as terrible as it may seem, just like Edith Keeler, it's supposed to happen for a reason, right? And once you have the power over time itself, what are you, the Q?
Yeah, pretty
right?
much.
You're just snapping a finger
Yeah.
and changing the course of history at a whim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, you used a very interesting phrase. You said supposed to. And when you throw into the mix here that literally any timeline is possible, not only is it possible, but it is also malleable, then I think the phrase supposed to goes right out the window, because there is no objective point of view that says supposed to. There is only the point of view of whoever is in power, or hopefully, with some altruistic motive. An organization like Starfleet is great, but they're also the bad guys to some others. See also everybody else we've encountered in the Delta Quadrant. I mean, that was Arturus's
Sure.
big beef with them.
Yep.
So it's very hard to stick to a principle like that when you don't have an objective standard. It just makes all of this as you were getting to, a timey-wimey, guess what,
Yeah.
don't try to think about it too hard. But the one who is thinking about it too hard is Harry Kim. And I know that we're going to come back to this in our wrap-ups as well, because that has to help us summarize what this is all about. But I think the Survivor Guild, and I'm glad they actually used that phrase in the episode. I think it is very interesting to watch a character go through that, and multiple times. I know that we're a little ahead of ourselves in talking about the acting and talking about the just the technical quality, the performance quality, production quality. But I think this is really part and parcel with our experience of the show. Harry goes through so many stages during this, and the driven determination to be able to change the past and, quote, right a wrong, again, debatable, and then his failure, and then his attempt to do it again. But he describes this as survivor guilt. And you and I have talked offline about shows that we're currently watching. As of this recording, I am still watching Masters of the Air, which is a dramatic series about the 100th Bomb Group from the Army Air Force, who were stationed in England and making all these bomb raids over Belgium and Germany in the last year or so of World War II. They had absolutely the worst survival rate of any of the Army Air Corps divisions. Absolutely. And if you were assigned there, it was extremely likely that you would not be coming back. And it's so interesting to watch this very thing play out week after week after week on this show, because here are these guys who say, okay, we would go there and we would try not to make friends. We would try not to get too close to the other people there, because you knew
that was like the Replacements and Band of Brothers. Like, we just don't want to get close.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we would try not to make friends, try not to get too close. And even then, like, when these guys don't come back from a mission, okay, all the stuff gets packed up in their footlocker and put away, and say, we didn't even talk about them anymore. Because it's like, if we talked about it, then we were somehow reinforcing that they weren't there, So the focus becomes the mission, the focus becomes everything else you're doing in the moment, and they just can't handle it to do it. And, add to that, all right, we haven't really put an age on Harry Kim. Ensign Harry Kim, young Harry Kim in present day Voyager, again, we kind of make it up. We just say 25, 26, something like that ish, sure. give or take a few years. These guys in the 100th Bomb Group were 19, 20, 21, 22 kids. Yeah. And then you don't wonder why it was so hard for them to come back and not be able to have these conversations with other people. It took a lot of time to work through that stuff. So having watched that show recently, applying that to what I see going through a character like Harry Kim here, you feel absolutely the enormous burden of guilt that he's walking around with.
Yeah, and the thing I think there's kind of like this sliding scale of whether or not he believes in the Federation anymore. The more and more and more they kind of put his needs aside, the more he becomes disillusioned or disenfranchised, with how can the Federation, how can Starfleet not care anymore?
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, of course, there's that survivor's guilt because like the only person who cares about more than anyone else is me. So if I'm only, the only voice to champion all of this, thank you. Then what is my faith like in our, in these organizations that are supposed to protect, and protect the memories, right, of them.
But from Starfleet's point of view, though, this is what happened. Like that is the accident that occurred. It happened in the past, a long, long way away. I don't feel that they're under any obligation to chase after everything that Harry, in his emotionally compromised state, feels like he needs to do to affect his personal sense of loss and guilt. Right. And, because again, whatever happened in history, we can't really say supposed to, it did. Right. It did, And as for the future, well, there may not be the future that he wants.
So let's get this straight. If I send a note to myself from 15 minutes in the future, that's interfering with history. If I send a note to myself from 15 minutes in the past, it's just a post-it note.
Far be it for us, John, to just be timeless about our conversations about this episode, because to be honest with you, we could probably spend a lot of time. I mean, just like dissecting like everything from, well, you heard our discussion. So we're going to get into the morals, meanings, and messages. But first, we're going to get into what we do with all of our mission logs. We need to see if this withstands the test of time. And then we're going to take all of that and apply it to what do we learn. So timeless is a classic. Or it is a timeless classic. So, or it is, isn't it?
I guess we'll see. I mean, I guess the object here is to be timeless with our observations, but bring it in on time, is what you're saying.
Well,
can't just stay here all day. I think this episode it's one of those moments again where Voyager does what it does best. You take high concept, weird sci-fi, going for the most dramatic angle, and also showing us stories that are connected to both character and the overarching premise to get back home. I mean, think about how many times in the past, how many episodes during, seasons 2 and 3, I kept saying, like, can we connect this to the main story here, even in some tangential way? And I feel like we've gotten more of that recently. Just by mentioning the quantum slipstream drive. Okay, remember that was technology that we got from Hope and Fear with this hope, quote unquote, that it would take us back home. So I love the connection points here that make Voyager into the bigger story that it is. I also like that for as memorable as an episode as this is, it doesn't need to wow us with a lot of action. Now, yes, we get the dramatic crash. And then we get a little bit of shooting between Challenger and Delta Flyer. But that's really it. If you think about it, the dramatic intensity is just a few select images. It's a few select visual storytelling pieces that sell us what's going on here. Something simple like going from that pad on Janeway's desk to seeing it in the future under ice. Like those are very effective pieces of storytelling that don't need to hit you over the head with explanation. And honestly, the rest of the episode really rests on Garrett's shoulders. And he does a really fine job here. It's about time that we got to see Harry Kim again growing as a character. But I wonder, like, what happens in the end when he gets that message from his future self? Were there any words of wisdom in there? Was there anything that future Harry Kim wants to tell his younger self? And I think it's a poignant moment. I love the poignancy of the end, but it's really just more about that consolation between Janeway and Harry. It's not about Harry and Harry. And it's been a long time since we've had that kind of scene between Janeway and Harry. I mean, we mentioned it, the guy did die once after all, and she told him to take some time off and think about it. Most time travel sci-fi tries to just leave you with this feeling of overwhelming awe and what if, but this one just sits back with this quiet bit of personal reflection. And I thought that was nicely done. And you mentioned it earlier. I got to give another shout out to just the overall production quality, the quality of the directing. The editing is just fantastic. And again, where they spent the money on the visuals, definitely a payoff there. So this holds up. It holds up very well. I think particularly if you're playing along with the home game for the last 4+ seasons, to get to know the characters, to get to take the detours into the weirdness when they come along. Maybe that doesn't forgive them for the mortal sin of not using the holodeck when you already said that you're using the holodeck to do these simulations.
Right.
But I do feel like this is one of those episodes that there are things you have to forgive, that being one, Tessa's backstory being another. Maybe we should have gotten some glimpses on Earth, a little more fill-in with that backstory. But there's something still so wonderfully weird about this episode, and the dramatic core is still there, that I think it does hold up. How about you, Norm?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying here, and yeah, I think that if you have to hand wave and accept like these time travel minefields, right, that help shape the narrative, and sure, it holds up. But I'm loath to say it, but if we all get caught up in how time travel is kind of like bent to the wills and the whims of the writers, our conversation will be like frustratingly hours, long.
Right.
Because that's kind of like what I was getting at, like in my description of like, does this hold up in the morals, meanings, and messages? Because there is a sense of accepting time travel in Star Trek, or maybe in any fandom. I mean, let's be honest, it's a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
And even though I don't personally kind of like buy the whole, well, just go with it, just accept it for what it is, I don't like the blasé kind of attitude about just hand waving time travel and disregarding the rules every single time a Star Trek episode decides to do a time travel story, because there has to be some rules, right? There has to be some logic.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? And it makes for a good story when they break the cycle. So instead of like my myriad of issues with not just time travel, but this particular episode of time travel, let's focus on the heart of what is most important. That's Garrett.
Yeah.
Okay. So for all intents and purposes, this is Garrett's and Harry's finest moment that I've seen so far. Come what may, I don't know like where Harry Kim is going to get written in the future in what's almost 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Garrett will always know that the fans, and I think in a lot of the appreciation of, our deliberations of Timeless, I think that everyone will be close to the hearts and minds of what this episode stands for, especially what Garrett represents here. I think many in the audience know how, here's that word again, champion. I champion.
You're welcome. I'll let you use that. Yeah.
TM. I champion a lot of the Asian actors in Star Trek. And probably not since The Shoot. And I'm not sure, like either earlier season 3, I think it was.
Maybe even 2. That was great. Yeah.
Right. we haven't seen that kind of depth with Garrett and with Harry probably since. There have been great episodes with Harry, but that one, though, really kind of like changed the paradigm of kind of like his, what's it called? Green behind the ears, or like the wet behind the ears type of green attitude that he had. And I'm glad that he was on center stage for this 100th episode, because come what may, moving forward, Garrett has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that he deserves to be more than he's been given than some of the problems that we saw in season 4.
Yeah, by far. Absolutely. Look, I'm going to leave it kind of short and sweet for the message. And it's so, here we are again, where you and I do not read each other's notes before we do the show. In the VAM, which is something that we reserve for our Patreon, if they get the uncut ramblings that we have, you mentioned The Visitor. And I put that down in my notes here as well, that this episode feels like the cousin of The Visitor in a very good way, because it really is about that guilt, that obsession that drives someone, and that loss, that feeling of connection, the need for connection in the thing that they couldn't fix, they couldn't change in the past. And there's a real tragedy to that. And, it's nice that in Star Trek we get to have these happy endings that come along because the character was persistent enough and the technology behaved enough and we were clever enough to solve this kind of a problem. But that's not really the case in real life. So we get to live that kind of fantasy here in an episode like this. And even though it's a fantasy, I don't think it takes away from, again, as you mentioned before, the heart of what's going on here. The heart is just the journey that we take with that character, played here so well. And I kind of, flippantly wrote down in the morals, meanings, messages that you can't change the past. Because that's the message for us, for all of us watching this. You can't change the past. Unless you can, I guess, unless you're given the opportunity somehow, because that tends to happen more often than not in a story like this. We can appreciate Harry's obsession with righting the wrongs, but then in the end, does he really learn anything from it? And that's where I'm kind of stuck here, because the message from future Harry Kim to present day Harry Kim on Voyager was to saying, hey, I fixed this for you. It's not like, watch after yourself, make sure you don't do this, make sure you do this other thing, tell people you love them, whatever it is, So then I wondered, do we, for our purposes, for the kind of discussion we have on this show, do we learn something from that? And I'm not really convinced that we do. But I also think that's okay, because I think part of what we do here is we sit with the emotion of the character, and we sit with the recognition that we have in a character like Harry Kim here, who is trying so hard, fails a few times, and finally gets it right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we can correct our mistakes. It doesn't mean that we can fix the past, but maybe those little opportunities in very small, maybe less existentially shattering ways do come around, and we get to take advantage of them when we can. What about you, Norman?
Well put, John. I'm going to go through a fandom kind of like a list of some of the things that I think are really important that, illustrate kind of this point. In 1978 Superman, Clark Kent says, after believing he failed to save his father, he said, all those things I can do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him.
Yeah.
But at the end of that movie, when he interferes with the course of human history and plays at God to save Lois Lane, is this the same as, say, stepping on a butterfly in the grand scheme of chaos effect by playing God? In Galaxy Quest, the Omega-13 is to believe to be a matter rearranger capable of rewriting 13 seconds of history once activated. Now, at first, it doesn't sound very impressive, except that it can do something so powerful as erasing a mistake from history.
Yeah.
Now, what does this have to do with anything? Harry got to interfere in the course of human history. He got his 13 seconds. But what did it cost him? In many ways, he died a worse death than Voyager. He was imprisoned in a never-ending cycle of guilt for 15 years in the void of what if. Never ending, that purgatory that would end when he corrected that mistake. But what about forgiving himself? What about the compassion he never gave himself to heal, right? To move on. Like everyone on Voyager, once Janeway made up her mind to destroy the caretaker's array, all bets were off. So for 4 years of making the choice to risk everything to get home, the one opportunity for Harry to take his chance, isn't that what at the heart of signing on to Starfleet is about? I mean, Kirk said this when he said, risk is our business. That's why we're aboard her, right?
Yeah.
So survivor's guilt is a prison. And it's not to be dismissed or taken lightly. Believe me, I know that to varying degrees every day. Even though I lost my dad to something beyond my control, if I had the power to change it, I would have without a thought. But that's where the danger lies, and that's where you can't suffer being chained to the past. My dad would never have wanted that. And Janeway would never have wanted that for Harry. Our loved ones and our family would want us to embrace life. And when we live on, they live on.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Infinite Regress.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, Julie Miller, Mike Richards, Mike Shadwell, Paul Shadwell, and David Takechi.
Hello, John and Norman. I don't have much time, so listen to me. 26 years ago, I made an episode of Voyager, and then you guys did a podcast about it. Look, there may have been some regrettable plot holes, but you're doing a podcast about it, no? So I guess that means the episode is pretty timeless, right? Get it? You owe me one.
End transmission.
Gotta go.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.